Thanks, Rich. Yeah, so I'm Chief Exec at Barking-Havering and Redbridge NHS Trust. We're in it's a largish acute hospital in East London. And I think part of the reason here is we've been the most improved trust in the country in the last 12 months for A&E performance, for radiology, various other bits and pieces. We're out of special measures. And the reason I came here actually about 3 years ago, I was first here in this office, in fact, 10 years ago to give the trust warning notices when I was regional director for CQC for London. And me and Mike Richards put the trust into special measures, and I kind of came back with a bit of a, if you say this stuff to places, you should try and help them out, actually. So it's been interesting for me coming back here, having moved from the regulator side into the provider side to try and see what we can actually do to help organisations like this. So a couple of thoughts really, and thanks very much Naomi and Shane for some great presentations there. I think Naomi mentioned there the importance of relationships, and so much of change is about building and developing strong relationships within organisations and getting the right results out of them. I mean, when I came here, I was something like the 5th chief exec in 7 years. Having come from Oxley's, which was my previous trust, where I was a 3rd chief exec in more than 20 years. And there's something about the consistency of that. And then, I don't know if this is a bit of advice for Keir Starmer, but when I came in, people met with a sort of polite smiles and a sign, a bit of a here we go again. Here's another well-meaning middle-aged man with grey hair and glasses telling us it's all going to be better in the future. And I was just one in a long line of those, really. And I think what I really realised was that there'd been so many change initiatives and pilots here that people were not really interested in engaging with the concept. They would walk into a meeting with you, they'd listen to you, you'd present your analysis, you present your data, and then they'd walk out and do exactly what they've been doing for the last 10 years, because none of the previous initiatives had really stuck. And there is something about being patient at the start. And I know you hear about all this first 100 days stuff and all this and the desire to hit the ground running. I think hit the ground listening would be my advice to leaders going into organisations that need to change. And don't always listen to the first people that make a beeline for your door. Because without giving anything away, the very first person that came to speak to me, we recently dismissed, actually. And what I heard from them was their long tirade of access to grind. Actually, the patient information from the people who've been here a long while who really wanted to talk to me didn't come forward for 6 to 12 months because they just thought I was another blow-through mercenary chancer who was going to wander off with a nice healthy pay packet and not really stay the course. So there's something about listening, really listening to people and being patient. And often the presenting problem in the NHS isn't the real problem in an organisation. You've got to try to get into that deeper culture of an organisation before you really understand where the levers are, where you influence, and where you can really start to push change. So there's no magic bullets, I don't think, by and large. I think for example, most urgent emergency care improvement in the NHS for the last 10 years, you could simply write, we need to discharge more people before midday. There's a very, very good 2003 bed management toolkit that NHS something or other produced that I still send around to people these days. Everything in it is, it shows, oh, look, the patients come in now, the beds come up now, and that's why we've got a problem in A&E. And analysis hasn't really moved on beyond that. So there's no magic bullets. There's very difficult, complicated, multifaceted problems that are all about people and how they work together that are at the heart of a lot of this, and so much of its relationships. So there's no magic bullets. It takes time. People want to see your commitment in this, and high leadership turnover affects trust and confidence. I did a HSJ interview when I'd not been here very long, where I said if I hadn't sorted out the A&E performance by, I think it was last August, that I'd have to consider resigning. And then the first response was lots of my friends sent me very sarcastic texts and inappropriate memes. But actually, what quite a few of the clinicians said to me was that was the first point where they started to think I was serious about the place, because they realised that I'd invested some of myself and some of my reputation in the organisation's success, and they started to think I was serious and they started to listen to me. So there's something about people seeing your commitment, and in that you need to be quite resolute and start to really believe in what you're doing. You need to get the right team around you. So for example, I'm quite scatty. I'm not a very good completer finisher. I get bored very quickly. I'm good on ideas and stuff, but I can do attention to detail when I'm forced to. But so you have to have the people around you to deliver on the stuff. My deputy chief exec is one of the best technical operational minds in the business. I've got an absolutely superb chief medical officer who's very happy to have difficult conversations with doctors, a hugely quality focused chief nursing organ. You build a team that addresses your own weaknesses. There's a good quote in Killing Eve: management is watching other people do a job worse than you could do it yourself. That is not what management should be. You need a team who are all better at what they do than you can bring to the table. So there's something about getting the people around you to make your thing work. There's lots of other stuff you can get in around it, but I know we've not got long for a discussion really. But two things. I mean, Naomi mentioned the speed with which often ministers and new leaders in the NHS reach to change structures. I do tend to change structures, but I tend to wait at least 12 to 18 months before I start changing structures in a place, because often if you go to the structural levels first, you feel like you're powerful, but there's nothing on the end of them. So for example, when I worked at CQC, I think ministers thought you could regulate quality into healthcare. You cannot. You can try to regulate failure out of healthcare, but it's clinical staff that drive quality into healthcare. Regulation's a backstop, and yet if you're a minister, inspection seems like an attractive way to drive healthcare, but it doesn't work. And there's a lot of research around that. So you've got to get the structures in to deliver, but it takes time to get there. Don't get depressed when things don't work. I've had some really, really unpleasant times in my professional career where I've gone home at night and I've thought, I'm making a right mess of this. I'm making an absolute hash of this. I should leave. I'm doing more harm than good here. You have to recognize how your mind and body responds to failure, and where you get your sources of strength for that. And you need to talk to other people and find out how they think it's going, because you will have bad phases during change journeys. You've got to have the kind of courage and the support around you to stick with them. And ultimately, a lot of it comes back to your ability to authentically take people on a journey that's hopeful at the minute. And I guess if I was talking to the Secretary of State at the minute, I'd say, what we've got basically is a bunch of very, very tired people. I'm a runner, so me and Richard often text each other about 10Ks and things like that. What you've got at the minute is a bunch of folk who've kind of finished a half marathon. You've said, surprise, it's a marathon, folks, you're halfway. Turn around, and there's the next one right ahead of you. And there's something about how do you recognise that fatigue, but how do you encourage people to go on that journey? Because what the NHS needs to do next is leave the acute sector where it is and fix community and primary care and mental health care. And that means people like me need to be able to authentically deliver hope to staff who are working in a context where they probably rightly won't see much investment for the next couple of years, but the system outside will improve and healthy acute hospitals will rise from healthier systems around us. There's something about not naively saying it's all going to be better. There's also something interesting about saying it's broken, because that sends a sort of certain interesting set of messages to people, doesn't it? That I think we could probably talk about further. But you need to be able to take people on a journey of hope that starts in the place that they currently are. And that authenticity and that commitment and those relationships are at the very, very heart of all this. And so yeah, change is great fun, and most of the work is change, really. In what we do, it can be hugely energizing, it can be exhausting and frustrating, but all of it's pretty wonderful in the long run, and all of it's about people, really, and that's what the job is, isn't it? It's about getting folk in and getting things better. And I think the main thing is you try to leave organizations better than you found them. I think that should be what change is about in the NHS, and that would be, I think, what all of us would want to do. If you go into a place and leave, did some things finish better than they were when you started? And that is always a good epitaph, I think, for any leader in any role in the NHS or elsewhere in life. Thank you.